Hey, get inspired, everybody. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Life Inspired, the show where we talk all about how people are following Jesus and how, like, he took a moment in their lives and turned them around, and now they're walking an inspired life. So you can watch this program on lifeinspiredshow.com or on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. And we would ask that you would like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that helps get more people exposed to these stories about what God's doing in people's lives. Right in the middle of a pandemic, I am on the red couch by myself because Jim Morris is at the house. Hi, Jim. Thanks for being on with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Diane.
We're so glad to have you. So Jim is a friend of my husband's. You guys are in men's group together, right? And I don't know
Correct.
what story you're going to tell today. So I'm really intrigued. What's kind of a backstory, if you can kind of set us up before God stepped in and did some mixture around stuff in your life. What's your backstory?
Well, I think I got saved when I was a very young child, about 8 years old, and I've always had God in my life. And I think one of the biggest influences of my life was my mother. My mother constantly shared with me truth about God. And growing up, I had a rough childhood with my father. And my mom would always encourage me. She'd always say, "This isn't God. God's here for you," she said. "So when times get hard, that's not God." She said, "But God's here for you." And I think as a young age, learning that constantly was important. And so as I grew up, I just kind of always had God a part of my life. And as I thought about the ... moment, I think everybody can go back into their life and find numerous ... moments where they made a shift. And I think as I grew, I watched God give me more. The story today I'd like to share with you is about my daughter. And my daughter, Jordan, she's 28 now, but she was born on my birthday, which was very special to me. And she was delivered in the front seat of our car. We never made it to the hospital. And so from day one, my daughter has been very special to me. It was on September 1st, 1992. And my wife had come home from the hospital, and because she went to see the doctor, and she thought she was, and he said, "Oh, go home, celebrate Jim's birthday. This baby's not coming for 2 days." She comes back, and all of a sudden she looks at me. She goes, "Something's not wrong. Get back to the hospital." So we're on our way, and I'm like thinking, I've had 2 sons already. I've got this one figured out. Water breaks at midnight, first labor pain at 5 a.m., baby's born at 9. That's how the other 2 went. But something was different on this one. And so we got to the used car parking lot at Jordan Ford. I pulled in, delivered my daughter in the front seat of our car. She wasn't breathing, so I had to do CPR on her. And then my wife had quit breathing. I had to do CPR on her. This is long before I had a cell phone. And so then once I got them both breathing, I finished the drive to the hospital. And that's not actually the story I'm going to share with you. But what I wanted to share with you was how important my daughter is to me and why God really kind of put her into my life. And years later, I was in Indianapolis. My son was playing hockey. This is a story that I would like to share with you. My wife and I ended up being divorced in 1999, which really kind of shook me to my core. And but we got along fine, and things were well with the kids. But I just kind of kept going through my life, and just I was teaching kids at GCC, and if I seen openings in my life that God could use me, I'd always try to step into them. But on January 19th, 2008, I was in Indianapolis, and Jordan and her mother were heading north to South Bend for Jordan's very first formal. She was a freshman at Penn. And she was like so excited, and she had the date and the dress. And I stayed in Indianapolis with Jesse, my son. So while we're there, they left about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to get her back in time for her formal and get her hair done and makeup. And about 6 o'clock, I'm sitting at Fisher's Ice Arena. And somebody looked at me and they said, "Jim, I think somebody just paged you." Well, this is 2008. Who pages anybody, And I said, "What about?" And they said, "It came over the loudspeaker." I wasn't even listening. So I went to the front office. I said, "Hey, did you page Jim Morris?" And they said, "Yeah, there's a phone call for you from a hospital in Fort Wayne." I'm thinking, why would a hospital be calling me from Fort Wayne? And so I get on the phone, And they said, is this Jim Morris? And I go, yes. And they said, we believe we have your teenage daughter. And I said, no, I think that's a mistake. I said, they were leaving Indianapolis, driving to South Bend. They weren't anywhere near Fort Wayne. I said, so I don't think that's possible. They said, no, there was an accident in Peru, Indiana, and she was airlifted to us. And they said, she's going in for emergency surgery right now. We don't know if she's going to make it. You need to get here. Wow. Shook me to my core right there. And so many things went through my head. I'm like thinking to myself, it's not true. They've got the wrong person. And so I told them, I said, well, why do you think it's my daughter? And they said, well, she had a hotel key card in her back pocket and your name is on it when we had it run. So they could figure out it was me. And she said, and she came to long enough to say her father's name was Jim Morris, and he was watching her son play hockey, or watching her brother play hockey in Indianapolis. And so they just started calling ice arenas till they found me.
Wow.
It just shook me. And so I'm still on the phone and my hand's shaking. I'm trying to take down directions and what hospital. And I said, what about her mother? Her mother was driving. And they said, we can't tell you that. And I said, well, you need to, because I got to get my son off the ice and he's going to want to know about his mother. And so they said, we can't tell you, but a state trooper can. So they put a state trooper on the phone and he said that she was pronounced dead at the scene. Later on, I found out that a man had been traveling south on the wrong side of 31 going towards Indianapolis. And they crested the top of the hill and he hit him head on. And
oh my gosh.
I was just gone. Mentally, I was just kind of like really shook. So sure. I hung the phone up and I had to go get my son off the ice. And so he was actually in the locker room between periods at the time. So I went and got him and he broke. I told him his mom had died and that his sister may not make it through surgery. And he started crying.
It's okay. It's okay.
He composed himself and he said, I can't do anything about mom, but we need to be there for JoJo. So took his equipment off.
How old was he?
He was 18 at the time. He was a senior in high school. Wow. And so as we're shuffling out of the ice arena, Fisher's Ice Arena they've got 2 ice sheets of ice. And as we're walking out, the teams that were on the ice at that time, they were all kneeling and praying. Just blew me away. And people were hugging on me and Jesse as we were walking out. I can't tell you how I even drove to Fort Wayne that day. I just put Jesse in the car and we just took off. I don't remember one thing about the trip. Jesse was quiet all the way. I was trying to contact my oldest son who had just gotten back from overseas. And he was a Marine at the time. And he was up in Detroit with his wife who was pregnant. And he'd only seen his mother a couple times since being back. So I finally got a hold of him. And they were going to meet us in Fort Wayne. But I got to Fort Wayne and got in there and they said, she's going to be coming out of surgery. She'll be in ICU. They said every hour that she's doing better, obviously the chances of her surviving are good. And they said, so every hour is a good thing. And she had a lot of broken bones, crushed pelvic, and bruising on the brain, which had swollen the brain. So they had to drill holes to release that pressure.
Wow.
This is kind of my ... moment, because I went in there and I sat with her and I held her hand, 14 years old. And I started to think about everything in my life, everything. And so as I'm hour after hour, the nurses came in and said, hey, you really need to get up and go get something to eat. You need to go walk around. And I just told them, I said, hey, if my daughter opens her eyes one last time in this world, she's seeing her father. So that's not an option. That's not an option. I said, I'm not going anywhere. And so as I sit there for hours, my sons were out in the waiting room, probably after about 15, 16 hours, I all of a sudden started to really dig in deep. And all of a sudden I started to feel guilty because I felt joy. Diane, I couldn't figure out where joy came from. And I'm like thinking,
Right.
Jim, how can you feel joy at this moment in your life? And I started to really process it. And I tell people this, I say, it dawned on me, I parked my car illegally in front of the hospital and I didn't care. I left my keys in the ignition.
Oh, wow.
I didn't care. I left my wallet, my checkbook in the center console. I didn't care. And all of a sudden I realized if my job fired me, I didn't care. If my house burned to the ground, I didn't care. My only job and responsibility in the world at that moment was to love my daughter. And I thought she could feel that love holding her hand. And if you can't have joy when your only job is just to love your daughter, when are you going to have joy? And so as I sat there and I held her hand, I knew if I could feel that joy, that she would feel that same joy from me. It just made life so simple at that time for me. They came in and they said, hey, it looks like after 28 hours, they said, it looks like she's going to be okay. She's not out of the woods, but it looks like she's going to be okay. And they told me, they said, when she comes to, you can't let her know that her mother passed. And I really struggled. And I said, that's not an option for me. I said, I will tell her the truth. I'm not going to lie to my daughter. I said, because if I lie to her about her mother, is she going to believe me about her health then? Is she going to believe me about her getting better? I said, I've got to tell her the truth. And so about 29 hours into it, Jordan opened her eyes and she couldn't move because they had her strictly down so she couldn't move. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And she looked up at me and I said, honey, I said, I love you. And she said, I love you. She just kind of mouthed it to me. And then she asked me, she goes, is mom at home or is mom in the hospital? And I said, honey, your mom didn't make it. And a little tear kind of comes down her eye. And I said, but I'm here. And I said, I'm not going anywhere. That was my ... moment in my life. It simplified life. Things that maybe used to be kind of pressurized for me or brought stress in, they don't really do that anymore. And, I'm in sales. And if I get somebody that's angry or upset, and I had a guy one time got really angry at me. And all of a sudden he says, do you think this is funny? And I said, no, why? And he said, because you're laughing. I said, no, I'm smiling. I said, because if it takes just this little bit to get you this upset, you've not known pressure, you've not known stress, you've not known disappointment. And I said, so I'm happy for you. And all of a sudden, just that room just kind of just went back, all the air just went out of it. But we got Jordan home, and Jordan was in a wheelchair for a while. And now I become a single dad overnight. I mean, legit, full-time single dad, 2 teenagers.
Right. And
my mom came to help out. And Jordan was in a wheelchair first, and then she was in a walker. She wanted to go back to Penn High School so bad, but I was worried even in a walker when she was doing that she couldn't do it. And so the Penn baseball team, the Penn hockey team took turns escorting her to class, which was amazing. And but about a year later, I remember Jordan sat in my lap, and she asked if she could, and she said, Dad, why did God take Mom? Tough question. And I told her, I said, honey, I can't answer that, but I said, I can tell you this. Because of who I am, that makes you who you are. And I said, and because when anything bad happens, since we believe in Jesus Christ, we're going to make the best of it. And I said, how many of your friends are jealous of our relationship as a father and a daughter? And she said, all my friends, Dad. And I said, that's because we took something bad and we made something beautiful out of it. And but she's 28 years old today now. And it's like she always reminds me we still share a birthday. But I think what I I've learned is how to have joy even when things aren't good in my life.
Right. That's amazing. Just like, wow. I didn't know. I think I had known that you had lost an ex-wife, but I didn't know anything about your daughter. Where do your kids live now? Where are any of them married? Any of the three of them married or?
Oh, yeah, this is the best part about my life. My oldest son, Jimmy, he's 36. He's full-time National Guard. He has three children, so I've got three grandkids.
Wow.
They literally
Thank
live
you.
on Anderson Road up in Granger. My other son, Jesse, is
Yay.
full-time National Guard now, and he lives in the south side of South Bend.
Wow.
And Jordan is 28. She's
Wow.
got a little boy, Micah, and she lives 2 miles from me.
Wow.
I'm just blessed.
What a
You
gift.
know, I get to
Yeah,
have
you
them
are.
around me so much. But yeah, so that's that was probably the hardest moment in my life. And I always preface it
Right.
with me delivering Jordan in our car because up until that accident, that was the hardest moment in my life. So she's been there for both of them.
Really? Right. Wow. Crazy. I just love how you God turned beauty from ashes. You know,
Oh,
you had ashes and he made it beautiful. And I love that you can use it in your work now. And the other thing is when you were telling how you started feeling joy all of a sudden and you're like, then you feel guilty for feeling joy. I was thinking, yeah, all those people were praying for you. You had gobs of people praying for you. And I was like, yeah, God was filling you with that joy and filling you with that joy because yes, she could feel that joy through the hand holding, I'm sure. You know, God just does crazy, amazing things with the human body and he uses our emotions. And I just think you were joyful because of all those people praying for you, you know?
yeah,
So that and probably your mom's prayers for you.
yeah. My mom was an amazing woman, and she did well
Yeah.
as far as raising me personally. But yeah, it was and it was funny how I did feel that guilt for a little bit because I'm like thinking, how can I feel this joy right now? But you're right, all the people lifting up my daughter and myself in
They
prayer,
were praying for you.
it was
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. Please thank your sons for their service. I'm so grateful to them for serving our country. I mean, COVID, all those people in their field right now, ugh. So thanks for that. Thank you for sharing. I know if somebody wanted to have coffee with you or Zoom with you and ask you more about your story, I'm sure that would be something you do, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome.
My life's focused on one thing, and that's just I'm trying to drag as many people to heaven with me. And I'll talk to anybody that wants to talk. And the
That's
crazy thing
awesome.
is just there's so many things in life, and like you said with COVID right now, there's a lot of negative out in the world right now, and I think we just need to rally around one another to build one another up, and I think that's the
Right.
best thing we can do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing. You guys, thank you for watching. This was a powerful testimony. I know you know somebody that needs to hear it, so share it to whoever needs to. If you watched it on Facebook, share it through Facebook. If you watched it on YouTube, share it from YouTube. If you watched it from lifeinspiredshow.com, you can share it that way. But somebody needs to hear Jim's story today. Somebody that has lost a loved one or maybe needs a mental adjustment for, yeah, if you get stressed about a little bitty thing, you're very blessed that you haven't had hard things and really hard things in your life. So it's a beautiful testimony, Jim. Thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Diane, for letting me share.
Yeah. And thank you guys for watching. You guys have a great week. Bye bye.